Hi, welcome to my segment on this wellness journey. I'm going to be talking about physical activity and not necessarily in the way you might think of it. I really want to concentrate on why you should be doing physical activity and instead of just saying, do this, do that, do this, you really, I feel, want to understand why and have something that drives you. So that's kind of what I want to be focusing on today. So my name is Judd Van Sickle. I work over at UC Davis Sports Medicine. I run the Sports Performance and Wellness program over there. So there's a tie-in. All right, so let's just dive into it here. So I'm sure this is going to be touched by other presenters, but I just wanted to give a real quick overview of what are the benefits of physical activity? Why do I care? The first and most obvious is improved physical function, right? The more physically active I am, the easier it is to do things that are physical. Makes sense. But there's a lot more to it beyond that. And the biggest ones that I'll dive into a little bit deeper here are things like decreased disease risk and then longevity and health span. So what do I mean by all that? Well, the functional benefits, again, pretty straightforward. Things like being able to maintain balance and your ability to move with ease. Your ability to keep going or to go fast. And then your ability to generate strength or power, strength quickly. So pretty straightforward functional benefits. And I think that's the sort of things that we think about when we think about physical activity or fitness or, quote, working out. And I'll get into these things a lot more later, but I wanted to kind of dig in a little bit deeper to the other 2 points. So this is a big one. Lowering disease risk. And the way I want to frame this is physical activity, being physically fit, and that doesn't mean super marathon runner, that just means having some physical activity in your life is the single most effective intervention at lowering disease risk for a wide swath of different diseases, including things like all-cause mortality. So if you're going to choose one intervention, this is the one. Diet's a close second. And of course, mental health, emotional health, and all that other stuff. But physical activity really takes the cake in terms of lowering disease risk. So things like your cardiovascular health, lower blood pressure, reduced incidence of heart disease, heart attack, stroke, that sort of thing. It's been shown to be very instrumental in lowering different cancer risks. Insulin sensitivity, so diabetes, prediabetes, that sort of thing. Obviously, weight management, I think that's where everybody's brain goes when they think about physical activity and exercise, but that's only one in this huge list. Things like joint health. Believe it or not, moving more, being physically active, leads to better joint health and a reduction in symptoms of arthritis, not causing arthritis. Oh, my knees are bad because I'm running. No, that's not the reason. There's just as much incidence in non-runners of knee arthritis as there is in runners. So there you go. Things like decreasing chronic pain, improving bone density so that you don't accidentally break a bone and get sidelined that way. Reducing risk of falls and injury, again, so you don't break a bone. And even lowering the risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. And then I'd be remiss not to mention the cognitive benefits. Yeah, you can be smarter when you're more physically active. It improves memory, attention, problem solving, reduces your stress, improves your emotional well-being. And then especially if you do physical things with other people, you've got that social engagement, that connection, which again, really tied into kind of emotional well-being, life success, longevity, health span, all that sort of stuff. Speaking of health span, having those 3 components, the balance and mobility, the cardiovascular fitness, and the muscular strength and power, has been shown time and time again to have a direct relationship to improving your health span. And to roll that back a minute, what do I mean by health span? Well, everybody, I think, has a general idea of what lifespan is, right? How long you're going to live. Well, health span kind of deals with how long am I going to live well? How long am I going to be able to live and keep doing all the things that I want to do? So really, that's what we want, right? We don't want to live a long life where we can't do anything. We want to live a long life where we're able to do things all the way through. So obviously with balance and mobility, if you move better and you don't fall and you don't break things, it's going to go better. But research is consistently showing that individuals with higher cardiorespiratory fitness, so that cardiovascular fitness, generally indicated by that maximum oxygen consumption, the VO2 max, live longer. And they live better because they can do more things. And then muscular strength and power. Yes, you can lift things like your groceries, but you aren't nearly as likely to fall, or if you do fall, you can catch yourself. It improves actually directly your metabolic health by increasing insulin sensitivity, so decreasing diabetes risk, which is very tied with lifespan. Overall quality of life. You can do the things you want to do. And I'm not necessarily talking about lifting heavy weights or things like that, but I mean general daily tasks of living. You want to have enough strength to do all those things. Protection against sarcopenia or just not being strong enough. And then, again, bone health. Stronger muscles lead directly to stronger, more resilient bones. But, I can talk to you all day about the benefits of this. And maybe for a lot of you, this sinks in and you're like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that. I like that idea of lower disease risk or Healthspan or whatever. So let's get on this and let's do this. But for a lot of people, that just kind of gets washed away into the background of, I'm really busy. I've got kids and jobs and parents and whatever it is. And then the physical activity kind of gets put on the back burner. Oh, maybe I'll do that later. Maybe I'm not. I can do all the things I need to do now. Why should I worry about it? That sort of thing. So that's where we kind of get to the crux of what I want to talk to you about today, which is what moves you? What's going to help you decide that being physically active is worthwhile and something that you want to keep pursuing? So this is where I want to talk about uncovering your why. Just a brief shout out to Simon Sinek in the business world, and his whole idea of businesses should start with why before they worry about how. Same thing here. I want you to start with your why. Why do I want to be physically active? Why do I want to be fit? Because let's be honest, it can be difficult to start, especially if you haven't been physically active for a while. It can be very difficult to start. And really, motivation, while amazing, is often fleeting. You can have it one day and you might not have it the next day. So what are we after here? We're kind of after that discipline of, I understand why I want to do this, and I'm going to do it because it needs to be done. Not because I'm excited about it today, but because it needs to be done. And I understand, for me, why that is. So, what are some potential whys when we start looking at this thing? Let's start kind of superficial level. Do I want beach body abs? Do I want to go to the beach, rip my shirt off and be like, yeah, I look good? Okay, sure, why not? If that's what drives you, go for it. Do you want to look good naked? Again, if that is your overwhelming why, go for it. Embrace that. Does this looking good lead to improved self-confidence and improve the rest of the facets of your life? Maybe it does, and if that is enough reason for you, run with that. Go with it. But how about things like decreased pain, getting out of bed in the morning and things aren't hurting? Being able to just do more things and not be limited throughout your daily life. Again, even this stuff may be a little bit superficial for you, especially if you're super busy and you've got all these other competing priorities. So, let's dig a little bit deeper here. So I kind of touched on the balance and mobility side of things. Not hurting when you move around, not getting injured. Yeah, it's a good start. But for me, it doesn't really get to my core, my why. So let's look at cardiovascular fitness, another component we touched on earlier. What's my why there? I want to run a marathon. Yeah, okay, sure, whatever. It's a noble goal. But it's something that the majority of us honestly aren't going to do. And to me, it's a bit short-sighted because what happens when you finish the marathon? Now what's your why? How about something a little bit deeper? Like being able to walk around a city on vacation after I'm retired, right? I've worked all my whole life and I've got my retirement in order and I'm going to go to Rome and I'm going to walk around that city and see everything there is to see, but only if I have the fitness to do that, which involves being physically active now. I always look to my father-in-law as the example here. He's just turned 70, I believe. Super, super, super fit. And he travels a ton. And I really think it is his goal in life to single-handedly bankrupt CalPERS. He is going to live forever and he's going to use that retirement. You know, and this kind of gets to my why, right? I want to be able to play with my grandchildren. When I'm in my 80s, when I'm in my 90s, I want to be able to get down on the floor and play with them and be able to get back up again. You know, I want to chase the 2-year-old around the garden. That's kind of, when I think about why do I want to be as fit as possible, to me, that's a big driver. I want to play with my kids, my grandkids, and not just watch them play. What about strength then? You know, and again, this might not be your primary why, but it can be certainly a big part of it. So little things like, hey, again, I want to pick up my grandchildren. I want to swing them around. You know, I want to be able to carry all my groceries in one trip. Or how about just being able to put your luggage in the overhead bin? For me, that just feels like I can do more when I have the strength to be able to do basic tasks. But you say, wait, I can already do these things. Well, right now, maybe you can. But here's the crux or the issue. We're going to lose function as we age. It is a reality of life. Your fitness will decrease. Sorry to say. So, now, a few things to realize. For most people at most stages in life, this is primarily due to a decrease in activity first and foremost. When you're in your 30s and you say, oh, just wait till you're 30 or 40 or whatever, you know, the vast majority of your decreased abilities from your glory days in high school or college is because you do less. You aren't doing the things that you were doing when you were younger. But let's face it, eventually age does matter. So what should we do about that? Well, consistent physical activity starting now, I don't care how old you are, starting now will give you a higher baseline to start with. So that when you do start losing function, it doesn't affect your day-to-day activities because you started at such a high level that being less than that, you won't even notice, except maybe, you know, in that marathon running department. It also, being consistently physically active slows that rate of decline. So going back to the idea of health span and being functional for as long as possible, if that decline happens much later, all the better. And then keeping in mind that focusing on and increasing your physical activity will increase your capacity and your ability to do stuff at any age, whether you're 20 years old now or 80 years old now. You can get better. I like to think of it just the same way as brushing my teeth, right? I want to have teeth when I'm older. So I'm going to brush them and floss them now so that I can keep them. Same thing for physical activity. I want to be able to do stuff later, so I better be working on it now. All right. Another nod to Mr. Simon Sinek and his infinite game concept. The idea of fitness as an infinite game, right? This isn't goal-oriented. This isn't 6 weeks to beach body abs and I'm done. This isn't run that marathon and I'm done, right? This is going to be a continual journey for the rest of your life. There is no short-term endpoint where everything's done and you've checked that box. Certainly you can have goals along the way, and I encourage that, whatever they are for you. But, you know, again, it's not the endpoint. So yeah, have events along the way, like I want to go hike in the Alps, or I want to look good for my wedding, or whatever it is. But realize that along the way, your goals are going to change. And in different stages of life, you're going to have different priorities, but you're always going to want to put some effort towards being physically active so that you can carry all this wonderful function throughout your life. So don't be afraid to realize that your goals are going to change along the way and roll with it. But you have to keep the idea in mind that this is not going to stop. You're going to keep doing it. And the last part is realizing that this all has an influence beyond just yourself. What you do, what you're able to do, it has an effect on those around you, whether it's just setting an example for your children, whether it is being able to do things with friends that want to go out and do things. You know, how you are able to function has a big impact on both yourself and those around you. So hopefully you can take a minute and just think about what's important to me and why would I want to be physically fit now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now. And again, if it's beach body abs, go for it, but maybe something a little bit more to the core of your being. Like, I love travel so much, I would hate to get to retirement age and have difficulty walking up a flight of stairs. That would be a bummer, right? So, you know, spend a little bit of time reflecting on that and all the other wonderful things that these presenters are going to talk about, but, you know, carve out some time for that. But now let's get a little bit into the nitty-gritty about the what and hows. All right, so once again, I kind of come back to this a bunch, but these are my core pillars of physical activity and fitness. So mobility, the ability to move, to express full range of motion, preferably without hurting. Cardiovascular health, you know, heart, lungs, kind of thinking of this as continuous motion. And then muscular strength, which is needed aid to support you, but also to move objects around, move yourself around, and just basically to do things. And before I get any more specific on that, you know, getting into the hows, there's a couple key points that I want to go over. The first and maybe most important is meeting yourself where you are. You should really have a heart-to-heart with yourself about what is your current condition, right? Whether that is something as simple as body composition, or how strong you are, how much endurance, physical capacity you have right now. Because let's face it, unless you are watching this and in high school, you probably aren't the person you were in high school or college or whatever. You probably don't have that level of strength and fitness and whatnot. And assuming you do and jumping into it like that after 15 years of sitting at a desk, it's not going to go well. So, you know, start with meeting yourself where you are and accepting where you are and not worrying about, not in a judgmental way, just saying, hey, this is me. Let's start from here and build. Next, I'll talk on the next slide about kind of how to build and what, to me, that pyramid of physical activity looks like. And the last point, and this is where I think a lot of people that once they start the journey get a little bit muddled, which is this idea of progressive overload. So if I am meeting myself where I am and I'm saying, I'm not as fit as I want to be, let's work on this. And then I start doing some stuff. Well, after a little while, that stuff's just going to be everyday stuff. I'm not going to get any fitter by doing that same thing over and over again. Whether that's going for a walk with my dog, whether that's doing curls with a 5-pound dumbbell, whether that's sprinting up a flight of stairs, you know, once I've been doing it for a little while, I'm not going to get any fitter continuing to do the same thing. So you really need to progress that stimulus that you're giving your body so that you will continue to get fitter. Now, if you're at the point where you're as fit as you want to be, then, you know, just keep doing what you're doing. So this is kind of the way that I like to look at physical activity, with the base being just movement and mobility. On top of that comes your cardio and your strength work. And then once you have those two pieces of foundation, now you can start worrying about the fancy stuff, the high intensity interval training, the power training, the whatever training, which by the way is not just for athletes. So I'll come back to that, but don't just eschew that saying, oh, I don't want to be an athlete. Well, it has real world applications. So I think we all need to begin with a foundation of movement. The human body is designed to move. It's not really designed to sit in a chair for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. It's designed to be moving. It functions better when it's moving. So what is step one in my pyramid of physical activity? Get up and move throughout the day. Don't just sit on the couch or in the chair or whatever all day long for hours and hours and hours on end. Because you will feel better if you move. But more than that, the human body in general is amazing at adapting to imposed demands. What does that mean? It'll get really good at doing what you ask it to do. So if you ask it to sit for 10 hours straight, it's going to get really good at sitting for 10 hours straight. But what do you need to sit for 10 hours straight? You don't need much muscle. You don't need much range of motion. You don't need much cardiovascular fitness. Well, if you don't need any of that, your body's not going to hang on to it. So in order to tell your body that, hey, we want to be able to move, the first step is to move. So what does that look like? Well, let's take the example of 10,000 steps a day. Well, actually, if you go into the research, it's more like 7,000 or 8,000 steps a day. But to me, this is kind of the buy-in for being a human being. This is your marker of, did I get up and move throughout the day? And what's the importance of this? Well, the research is pretty clear that once you hit that 7,000, 8,000 steps a day threshold, you have very significant decreases in disease risk for all that stuff that I talked about earlier, and all-cause mortality and all that sort of stuff. So, not only is it foundational to your physical activity to get up and move, right? That's the buy-in, right? You get up and you walk for those 8,000 steps a day, and you're going to have a massive decrease in risk of disease. And then on the mobility side, yeah, maybe not just walk. Maybe move your body through full range of motion, express yourself, that sort of thing. That's a little bit harder to do. It's easier for people to just say, all right, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a walk to the water cooler or around the building or whatever. But also moving your body the way it's meant to move really helps it to continue to function properly. So that's where we can pull in things like yoga. We can pull in dance, any sort of natural movement. Just look at the way kids play, right? You never see them just walking. They're down on the ground, they're up in the tree, they're, get out of there. Yeah, you know how it goes. But they're always moving in all these different directions through full range of motion. So to me, that's a great idea, is to mimic that. Just be aware that if you don't do it mindfully, it's not going to happen. All right, let's get to some next level stuff. So now that we've had our buy-in of, yeah, I'm up out of my desk, walking my 8,000 steps a day, and I'm moving around, getting my body worked. What's the next level? Well, now we want to start talking about increasing fitness through physical activity. So looking at things like your cardiovascular exercise and your muscular strength. If you're doing some sort of mobility practice, like a yoga, stretching, whatever, that's going to pretty much take care of that side of things. But if you're doing cardiovascular exercise that gets you through full range of motion, if you're doing strength work that gets you through full range of motion, you've checked 2 boxes at the same time. Excellent. But what does this cardiovascular thing look like? Well, the new cool thing that all the kids are doing is this Zone 2 training. If you haven't heard of it, basically it's continuous physical activity, at a intensity that feels like you are moving along. It's not a sprint, it's not a marathon. It is an intensity where you feel like you are moving along, you're putting forth some real effort, your heart rate's getting up, but you could still carry on a conversation with the person next to you. There's much more specific definitions of what it is, but that gets to the heart of it. It is purposeful, moderate level, continuous movement that gets your heart rate up, but isn't too hard. And this is huge in things like increasing mitochondria to improve energy making ability of your body in general. And capillary density and all this other stuff. But doing this a few times a week really helps build that base of fitness on top of your movement. It is, regrettably, dose dependent, right? The more you do, the better it is for you. You probably need 3 to 4 hours a week, although the CDC says 75 minutes, to really start feeling some big increases in fitness. Where does it end? Regrettably, you're probably not going to start getting diminishing returns on this till you're doing 10, 12 hours a week or more, which, honestly, are we going to do that? For most of us, the answer is no. So people ask me, how much should I be doing? As much as you can fit in. If it's 3 45-minute sessions a week, awesome. If it's 10 hours a week of riding your bike, also awesome. And then muscular strength. So the first thing I've found is that for a lot of people, we need to actually differentiate between aerobic exercise and muscular strength. Because riding the bike, going for a hike, getting on the rowing machine, all that stuff's great for your heart, lungs, and your muscular function, but it's not building any appreciable amount of muscular strength. You need to do stuff that is challenging to your muscles to build strength, to build muscle mass, to improve function in this domain, right? So what are my options? Well, option number one, manual labor. Big fan, right? Go buy a ranch, throw hay bales around all day, mend fences, build barns. Awesome. You will get super strong. Probably not practical for most of us. So some sort of resistance training is your next best bet. What does that look like? Can it look like weight training? Absolutely. That's probably the most efficient way to do it that allows you to continue to progress. But can you do that with body weight exercises at home? Yes, to a point. Eventually, you're going to get so good at push-ups that you're going to want to go get some weights because you're sick of doing push-ups. But, again, meeting yourself where you are. Say, I can't do a push-up. Well, doing a push-up up against the counter, I think Dr. Wade is going to talk about this, is a great way to start this. But you have to do something that is difficult for your muscles so that, after doing it 8 or 10 or 12 times, you're like, I don't think I can do much more. That is the kind of load we're looking for to stimulate this muscular strength. And, like I talked about earlier, this goes solidly into the progressive overload model, right? If I can do X amount of whatever right now, in a couple of months, I should be doing more than that. Otherwise, I'm not stimulating any additional adaptation. I'm not getting any stronger. But I don't want to get stronger. Okay, that's a fair argument, except that you got to remember the whole age-related decline in function. So you want to have, just like your retirement fund, you want to have enough in the bank now so that when you're half as strong and 85, you've got plenty of strength to do all the things you want to do. So for me, it's a matter of just being the strongest practical version of yourself. Whatever that looks like for you and your time availability and whatnot, just be the strongest version of yourself that you can fit in. All right, now we've got that next layer covered. Got some cardiovascular fitness. We've got some muscular strength. What if I want to fine tune this? What if I want to take this to the next level and truly chase after fitness? Right? That's where we start sprinkling in the next level stuff. So you probably heard about the high intensity interval training, going really hard and then recovering, and then going really hard and recovering, and just doing that a few times. This is fantastic. There's a lot of research out there on how It's just as good as 45 minutes of steady state cardio. Well, I say do both. But it's also super safe. There's a lot of research out there on using it in the cardiovascular labs or doing it in cardiac rehab or whatnot. So you should get your heart rate up once a week, once every 10 days, really up, pushing really, really hard. This maximizes that VO2 max, your cardiovascular fitness, tunes up your mitochondria so they work really well. I don't think, again, it's a replacement for the steady state stuff, so do this and go for a hike. But really, really great at improving fitness in a short amount of time. And again, we're talking fitness. We're not talking about, running a race or climbing Mount Everest or whatever. We're just talking about being the healthiest version of ourselves. And then muscular power, so moving quickly. If I'm strong, but I can't move quickly, how am I going to catch myself when I trip? Right? So if you look again at those age-related declines in function, first thing that goes is speed and power. You're going to lose that before you start losing strength. And it's that ability to move quickly that you want to make sure you're working on so that you don't lose it or it falls off, like I said, slower. And then eccentric strength, or your ability to absorb force, again, plays into things like fall risk. Your ability to stop yourself from falling. Also, to walk down a flight of stairs, for example. But this stuff you don't have to do a ton of. So it's not the walking every day. It's not even the 3 days a week of steady state aerobic exercise type stuff, or 3 days a week of the strengthening exercises. It is, once a week, maybe twice a week, but probably once a week is plenty. It's only going to take you 15 minutes. So it's very important, but it should not be the centerpiece of what you're doing. So a quick note on adaptation. Again, you need enough of a stimulus to make your body want to or need to change. If you just do the same thing all the time, you aren't going to get fitter. If your physical activity looks exactly the same as it did 3 months ago, it's not making you fitter. It's maintaining what you have, but it's not making you fitter. So you do want to some extent, increase that stimulus, whether it's heavier weights, whether it's faster intervals, whether it's longer walks, whether it's whatever it is for you. Increasing the stimulus so that your body continues to adapt. But keep in mind, maintaining fitness through physical activity takes a lot less work than building it. It takes a lot of work to get from where I am now to where I want to be. But once I'm there, once I have all the endurance that I think I could ever use, all the strength that I think I could ever use, you don't need to do nearly as much work to maintain that as you do to get there. So that's one thing to kind of think about when you think about your long-term fitness journey, is that put the work in now to get as fit as you can and hang on to it. And it doesn't take, like I said, as much work, which is, it's good. Because for me, it takes a lot of work to get there. All right, then if we are looking for some resources to get started, it's not a bad idea, right? For me to walk into a gym and start lifting weights might not be the best idea if I have no idea what I'm doing, right? So finding a personal trainer, finding a physical therapist who knows how to do strength training, even doing some of these group exercise classes, although there's not as much individual attention. Something where you've got somebody helping you learn how to do whatever movements it is so that you don't hurt yourself, so that you're doing it correctly, so that you're maximizing your benefit. It's a pretty good idea. The cardiovascular exercise, it's a little less technique dependent for the most part. You can just start walking briskly right now, right? You could probably just go for a bike ride right now. But a lot of times you're not going to keep doing that by yourself a lot. So finding groups or clubs or like-minded people to do these things with is not a bad idea. On the movement practice, yeah, you can get a video and do it in the comfort of your own home. Absolutely. You can go to a yoga studio or a Pilates studio or a bar class or whatever, dance, and do these practices with other people. Again, it's going to be much more encouraging. You potentially have people that know what they're doing to help you do it correctly so that you're maximizing your benefits. But any way you do it, do it. All right, so kind of bringing this full circle. Step one, remember we're gonna reflect on this. Step one, remember your why, and keep that in your head as you go along. And it can change. It's totally acceptable. What your why is that drives you to be active now does not have to be the same thing that it is 20 years from now. But start where you are. If you're doing 2,000 steps a day right now, don't go straight to 8,000, right? Say, hey, I'm only doing 2,000 right now, but I think I can do more. Let's try 2,500 this week. Let's try 3,000 the week after that, and work your way slowly up to it. And don't just say, well, he said 8,000, I'm going right there. Meet yourself where you are. Have something in place. Have a plan in place. You want to just say, oh, I'm going to start working out Monday. We're getting healthy. I don't know how, but we're going to do it. So maybe make a plan saying, hey, let's join this walking club. Every Saturday they're meeting in the park and they're walking for a couple miles. That looks great. And then, annoyingly, being consistent is key. And the consistency in this is more important than any single intervention that you're going to do. Right? You can have these plans to lift the heaviest weights, but you can't do that once a month. Right? You can't have the plan to go hike up a mountain and just do it and not prepare for it and be consistent in your preparation. That consistency over time outweighs any single thing that you can do. And then beyond that, find stuff that you like to do. But not just that you like to do, things that you will keep doing. Right? Because this isn't about, yes, it's about like. You should enjoy it. You should like doing things. But that's not what it's about. It's about preparing yourself for the long haul. So finding activities that you will keep doing, and then keeping your why in mind on those days where you don't feel like doing it. And, again, involving other people can really help with that. You're like, oh, I don't want to get up. Oh, I will get out of bed because I'm meeting them around the block in 20 minutes. I got to go. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'll be answering some questions.